call the member for Ballina.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise to publicly announce, as the New South Wales Greens Agriculture spokesperson, our new agriculture and rural land use policy. And I'm very excited, Mr Speaker, to do so because it's been a year-long process with our grassroots members and farmers right across the state, as well as environmentalists and ecologists. And it's been an exciting 12 months. And we've also had the privilege of having someone do over 100 hours of research globally on best practice agriculture and where we need to move to with a warming planet. So as I say, Mr Speaker, we've gone through a 12-month detailed review of the science and best practices worldwide, and we've completely overhauled our policy in deep consultation with farmers, environmentalists and stakeholders across the state and country, as I say. First Nations people sustainably manage this land for some 80,000 plus years through complex agricultural practices, culture, peace and deep connection to country. The United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has made it clear that climate change demands rapid and radical reforms in agriculture and land use. Our policy draws on the principles of regenerative agriculture and agroecology. It will dramatically reduce greenhouse gas emissions and remove significant amounts of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and at the same time improve long-term productivity, food security, and protect ecosystems and build more resilient communities. Mr Speaker, when we went knocking on the doors of farmers and agroecologists, what we found was that small farmers in this country have been engaging in a quiet revolution and have been moving towards regenerative farming practices for quite a while, particularly with regard to soil health. We saw that gorgeous campaign by the University of New England and Cotton Info in 2021 called Soil Your Undies that highlighted the major crises we have in soil health. The experiment called on farmers to bury 100% cotton underwear in soil on their farms for 8 weeks and then dig it up. The more degraded the underwear, the better the soil. So after 8 weeks, you'd want it to disappear because that measures the microbial activity. But unfortunately, soil health is a major crisis, and that study bore that out as well as our research. And most food grown in this country is no longer grown in soil. Farmers are experts in soil and they know that production yields are utterly linked to the health of soil and the land they manage. Consumers are more and more focused on nutrient-dense food, particularly in my electorate, Mr Speaker, and you simply do not get nutrient-dense food grown out of soil in poor soil. Public policy and public funding must be diverted away from environmentally unsustainable land use practices that cause or contribute to desertification, species extinction, habitat destruction, adverse human health impacts and loss of productivity, atmospheric warming and the formation of ocean and river dead zones. There is a huge appetite for change in the agriculture sector. The New South Wales Greens Agriculture and Rural Land Use Policy meets that need, and we will hold the government accountable to the urgency of meaningful change. The time for platitudes is long gone. The United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change made it clear in its special report on climate change, land degradation and sustainable land management that this global warming demands rapid and radical reforms in the agriculture sector, amounting to an agricultural revolution similar in scope to that of the birth of agriculture as we know it some 10,000 years ago. By credible estimates, agricultural activities account for 24 to 30% of anthropogenic climate change globally on croplands and pastures, covering over a quarter of the Earth's ice-free land areas with a climate impact roughly equivalent to that of electricity generation. Mr Speaker, climate change is already costing Australian farmers an estimated $30,000 per farm. $30,000 per acre per farm annually. In our policy, vague notions of sustainability make way for actions with proven climate change mitigating effects, such as rapidly transitioning away from the overuse of synthetic fertilisers and pesticides in favour of nature-based methods and controls. And Mr Speaker, that is also a booming industry in my area, alternatives to chemicals and organic farming. Our policy places climate change adaptation and mitigation where they belong, front and centre. I'd really like to thank Dara Tatray, Sue Higginson, Adam Gibson, Joel Orchard, the Greens New South Wales Agriculture Working Group, and Jackie Allen Atway in my office for her incredible advocacy in coordinating this review, and we look forward to talking about this for the next year or beyond. Thank you.
Well, I thank the member for Ballina and of course